Q&A for the Holistic Dog Summit on day 3. This is exciting. This has been quite a whirlwind. I'm getting lots of comments. I'm hearing private messages. I'm watching what's happening on Facebook, and I'm really excited. I was so deeply touched today when I got an email from a veterinarian. And I saw some other comments yesterday, but the veterinarian she's going through a transition now. And she's really ready to make a jump to holistic care because she knows what she's been doing has not really served her or her clients, the patients, and really just her heart. So that just really warms my heart to know that, she's out there trying to make these shifts. Alan, you've seen this millions of times. You've taught millions of students. Anyway, let me first go through who's here today, and then I'm going to recap a little bit. Well, let me recap first. So we went today on the Holistic Pet Summit with the holistic philosophy and planetary medicine. I love that, planetary medicine, which means a lot of different planets, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, my dear mentor and friend, Richard Pitcairn, he and I talked about homeopathy and, of course, quantum and energy and blah, blah, blah. And that was great. Alan Schoen and I spoke about the integrating holistic medicine, but we spoke about his new project, Calm, the Conscious Animal Lovers Movement. And we're going to bring that up today, too. So that was a wonderful conversation. I love that because of the power that you helped me realize how powerful the animal lovers can be for healing the planet. And then my dear friend, Margot Roman, I hope you all listened to that. She's had many years experience. And yes, she's one of the experts in ozone and restorative microbiome therapy, but she has a lot more to say about pretty much everything. She's a brilliant woman. And Mr. Greg Tilford, I love Greg. He is a deep philosopher. And we got into the conversations about, again, holism and how to make our plant world and herbalism into a more holistic, not just again, using herbs as an allopathic treatment. So it was a great day to me in the neighborhood with all the wonderful people that were on. So I'm wondering, while I'm introducing you to my guests here, which you already know, tell me where you're from. Some of you are doing that. As you're coming in right now, please tell me where you're from. I'd like to know, just, I don't know, Czechoslovakia or Maryland or whatever. So we have Dr. Eiler Fishburne. I asked her to come back in today for what we're going to do. None of you are expecting this kind of what we're planning here today, but hopefully it will give you some help, some insight, some stimulation in your brain, but also open your heart even more. That, I know you're already open-hearted. And then Dr. Alan Schoen, sorry. So Dr. Alan Schoen, dear friend of mine, I wanted him here because, again, what we're going to be talking about and his ability to coordinate left medical model and right medical model. I don't mean that right and wrong. And his ability to do that and has done that for many, many decades. Isla's work has helped you specifically help people connect with their animals at a deeper level too, through sound and all the other shamanic techniques you use. And then the other person I invited is my partner, Tom Brady. And Tom has a background in philosophy. He's also was a solar builder for 25 years. And so that's our dining room, living room he's sitting in, the solar home. And he also is a practiced astrologer for 50 years. And that gives Tom, I think, a very wide base. We're not talking astrology for your animals. That's not what we're talking about. But what we want to talk about, Tom's going to introduce us to the concepts I want to bring in. He and I have discussed these things for years and years, and I have written about it in a dog magazine, but this is going to be slightly different. And because we're on the, in the home stretch, basically on this summit, I wanted to pull this together, but I thought maybe it would be better to do it on Sunday when maybe more people are at home and can listen, rather than on Monday when maybe they're getting home from work or they're still at work. Who knows? Does anybody work anymore? I mean, not in the way they used to. So so that's why Tom is here. And I think you'll find his information and his presence very useful for us. So I just wanted, okay, let's see. London, Ontario, Philly, PA. I love it. Maine, Ontario, Canada. Oh, so good. Hi, Lizzie. Rainy, Lexington, Great Barrier Island, New Zealand. I love this. Isn't this great? Let's see. New York City, New Jersey. Of course, Lizzie's from Texas. We love Lizzie. And Royal, you were one of those people. I loved your comment yesterday. You commented that you really wanted to get into holistic medicine now. Great. Thank you so much for your commitment and your love for the animals, because it's going to serve you well. You're going to love it. Chicago, Pittsburgh, Virginia, Greeley. Oh, yeah, close by my vet school. Another Quebec, Canada. Oh, Juliana, I didn't even see your name. Sorry. Bowie, Maryland, Belgium. That is so cool. Angela, you liked it that I posted about colloidal silver. Good. British Columbia. All right. Don't you love it? I just feel like we're just this huge family that just so cool we can come together like this. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you, shut off the chat. Please do this for me. I have a love-hate relationship with chat. It is so wonderful to feel the connection and to see your participation, but not yet. Okay? So shut it off for now. Don't tempt yourself. Just be here now. Be here. This is truly, the word holistic has a variety of roots. One of them, my favorite, is from the word holy or sacred. So we want to create a sacred time right now. You've taken the time in your day. You've maybe even paid for these fantastic summits, which are still available. You can pay for them, which is a great resource you can share with other people. Day 2 will be expiring soon, but again, you can still upgrade and pay for it. So they'll always be there for you. But as we create this holy space, this whole, the word holistic also comes from to make whole. And the word heal also comes from to make whole, because wound comes from fractured, broken. So thank you. And I really ask you only with sincerity, so that not trying to squelch your creativity on the chat box, but we'll have plenty of time for that at the end. Okay. So without further ado, and one last little quickie announcement. We have a post-summit course coming. There'll be 20 people that'll be invited to work with me for some weeks. And it's a small group, but it'll be a more intimate group where I can go into more details. So just to tell you about that. All right. So from right now then, take a deep breath and let's go. So Tom, can you help us with these concepts that we want to share with people?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you here today. I need to make a little announcement before I begin. Dee and I have a 17-year-old dog who's approaching her end of days. And because Dee works full-time and I'm retired, I have been her main caretaker. So she's here with me in the room. She gets herself into trouble all the time. So if you start to hear whimpering and crying, that's her. And if my camera goes off, it's because I've shut it off so I can go rescue her from whatever disaster she's gotten herself into. So please be patient with me. If that happens, I'll be back as quick as I can. Somebody else can pick up and cover till I get back.
Great.
So as Dee said, I'm not a healthcare practitioner. I was a counselor for almost 30 years. But I've been around these ideas because of Dee, these holistic ideas. I've been around them for the 35 years that we've been together now. And I've watched her grow in her understanding of them. And she's helped me grow in my understanding of what I was doing. Because as a homeopath and as an astrologer, we were both dealing with not just a different set of ideas, but a whole different way of thinking. And this is a very unusual idea in this culture, because the comments I get all the time are isn't thinking just thinking? Well, the answer is no, it's not. We're just used to thinking in a certain way. And I'm going to share with you when we started to think this way and why we started to think this way. And the way we think now, the phrase I like to use to describe it comes from a German philosopher named Martin Heidegger. And he called it the subject-object split. And what that means is that we think in a way where we are a subjective perceiver perceiving a seemingly objective reality. So there's me, the subjective thinker, and there's everything else and everybody else in the world, which is the object. And this is not just in medicine. This is absolutely endemic in all Western cultures and has been for 2,500 years now. And it didn't used to be this way. People did not think this way. And this was before 500 BC. And you know, I've noticed which does not surprise me because I ran into the same thing in my astrological practice. I noticed in the comments here in the last couple of days, for every man that's commenting, there's 25 women commenting. So this is a very feminine interest, holistic healing, much, much more so than it's a masculine interest. And that's extremely appropriate, because that's where it came from. It came from the matriarchy. It came from the goddess cultures that were in Europe from about 10,000 BC to about 3,000 BC. And then about 5,000 BC, the patriarchy started to flex its muscles and started to decide, well, maybe we should be running the show rather than the women. And the main weapon they used in their successful suppression of the goddess cultures was the subject-object split. And where it came in was with the invention of the alphabet. I'm going to put a couple of links. So when the chat opens up again, I'm going to put a couple of links that I would really, if you're interested in what I'm saying or want to see more of it, that you should look at. And one of them, there was a wonderful book, and there's a YouTube video of an absolutely phenomenal lecture, the best hour you'll ever spend in your whole life, by an author, a surgeon turned historian of consciousness named Leonard Schlein. The book was called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. It was popular in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff. But he, in this YouTube lecture that he gave at Pepperdine University, he starts out describing, you know, when in Greece, they started rededicating all of the goddess shrines to gods. And he realized that that happened after the alphabet arrived in Greece. Before the alphabet arrived, it was a goddess culture. Once the alphabet arrives, it all changes. By 500 BC, women's rights in Athens are a huge issue. Where in Sparta, which was still a kind of strange hybrid of the matriarchy and the patriarchy, the women basically controlled the culture, but they let the men have their wars because that's what the men wanted to do. And but there was no issue of women's rights. They had their rights. They didn't have to make it an issue. But in democratic, model for the Western world, Athens, it was all women's were being suppressed right from the get-go. Now, March is Women's Month. And Tuesday, March 8th, this coming Tuesday, is International Women's Day. So I think it's really important to understand that in your interest in holistic healing, Dee likes to talk about it as a revolution in healing. It's not just a revolution in healing. It's far bigger than that. It is a revolution in being a human being. Because the patriarchy's done. Just doesn't know it yet. The problem with the subject-object split is it's terminal. It's killing us. It's got to be balanced. If it's not balanced, kiss it off. The game's over. We're going to kill ourselves. We're in the process of doing it on a daily basis now. I mean, look at Putin. Talk about the subject-object split, This is really, really dangerous. What they're playing with here. And they've been doing this for centuries, but now they do it with nuclear weapons. It's done. It's done. It's got to stop. So by your little interest, which you may think is just a little side interest or something in holistic healing, you're actually joining a revolution of humanity, because the culture is going to change dramatically over the next 50 to 100 years. And what you're teaching your children now, you're either teaching them to be part of the old world or you're teaching them to be part of the new world. And if you're teaching them to be part of the old world, you're doing them a great disservice, because they're going to have a very hard time. Because when these changes happen, and I'll go through them very quickly in just a second, the whole history. The Firesign Theater in the 70s was a comedy troupe, and they had in the United States, and they had a little skit that called The History of the World in 60 Seconds. So I'm going to do the history of human consciousness in 60 seconds when I'm done here, just so you have some sense. And again, if you're interested in it further, I'll give some links that you can look into it. But you don't need to know it. You just need to get the big picture, because if you get the big picture, you go, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not just this weirdo that my vet just thinks is ridiculous. I'm the leading edge of this whole human movement at this point, and these are the dinosaurs I'm talking to.
Yep.
And when these worlds change like this, and by the way, there was a Greek myth that predicted the patriarchy crushing the matriarchy. It was called The Story of the Mother and the Maiden. It was Demeter, the Earth Mother, and Persephone, her daughter. Uh-huh. And they were both raped. It's actually a very grisly myth. Now, Carl Jung said myths are common dreams. They serve the same purpose in the collective psyche that personal dreams serve. They balance they spotlight unbalanced attitudes so that hopefully we'll do something about it here. So here's Greece, where the subject-object split started. And it started with the birth of philosophy. And philosophy, there was a branch of philosophy called natural philosophy, which eventually became science. So they both started in Greece about 500 and a little before then. The alphabet arrived in 800 BC. By 750 BC, the first philosopher appears. You think that's accidental? I don't. There was nothing, philosophy didn't exist. There was human thinking, but it wasn't philosophy and it wasn't science until the alphabet arrives. There's something about the act of, and there's some studies on this, but not many, because who's going to give a grant to study whether the Greeks, whether literacy created Greek philosophy or not. But after a lifetime of study of this, I'm convinced that that's exactly what happened. And, when that world started to change, those philosophers, those first, which were all men, by the way, they had to know they were into something brand new, because the old form of consciousness that came out of the matriarchy, which we call the at-one-ment, as opposed to the subject-object split, which meant that people thought in a way that unified the perceiver and the perceived rather than separated the perceiver and the perceived. The at-one-ment had been around for, we think, 100,000 years. It first shows up in the very first evidences of human behavior, modern human behavior, symbolic communication, symbolic thought, show up 100,000 years ago. And so we think that the at-one-ment came in with that, and it was a natural outgrowth of the animal at-one-ment. If you know who Galdicas, Mary Beruti Galdicas is, she was they called them the Three Musketeers or whatever. It was Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, and Galdicas. And Jane Goodall studied chimps, and Fossey studied apes, and Galdicas studied orangutans. And she was asked one time, what had she learned from a whole lifetime amongst the orangutans of Borneo? And she immediately replied, serenity. And in that one word, she captured the essence of what it means to be conscious in the human manner on the earth. And this is something the indigenous cultures have known all along. We're just now figuring it out. And, for instance, the First Nations people in Australia believe that the animals live half in the dream time all the time. In other words, they're connected to the source of creation permanently. And they don't have a subject-object split. So the animal at-one-ment is what the human at-one-ment grew out of. And there's all sorts of, well, not all sorts, because hardly anybody's thinking about this thing. But there's some theories about what got us to where we are. My favorite one is called the stoned ape hypothesis. And that is that the apes started eating psilocybin mushrooms, and that stimulated areas of the brain. If you see, there's tremendous research on psilocybin going on right now. And one of the most interesting things is when they do a brain scan of somebody before they ingest psilocybin and then after they ingest it. Before, you see these two connections in the brain, and the minute they ingest it and it's in their system and they scan the brain, the thing is just, the board is lit up with connections from different parts of the brain that normally don't talk to each other. So the stoned ape hypothesis, and I'm not arguing for it, I just think it's a very plausible possibility, is that these apes ate the mushrooms. And in a lot of the shamanic traditions, well, the anthropologist Levi Brule said, the shaman speaks and the psychoanalyst listens. And we got a wonderful example of that with Dr. Fishburne the other day, and I hope we're going to get a closing example of that today. And I think it is so interesting, again, that the way in the comments people were sharing about what their pets were doing when she was giving her demonstration, and the way they were paying attention to what she was doing. And there was one of my interests has been linguistics, and there was one of my favorite linguists was a Cheyenne Native American linguist named Dan Moonhawk Alford. And he summed up the whole history of consciousness. And the way he summed that up, let me read it so I get it correctly here. Bear with me a second. He said, long ago, people and animals and spirits and plants all communicated in the same way. Then something happened. After that, we had to talk to each other in human speech, but we retained the old language for dreams and for communicating with spirits and animals and plants. Dr. Fishburne spoke the old language the other day, and the animals responded. And so when he said, and then something happened, what happened was the subject-object split. And the reason we have the subject-object split is there's something about alphabetic literacy and the repeated act of reading and writing that separates us. You have to stand back from the page. If you get too close to the page, if you try to be at one with the page, I mean, you can do it intellectually, but you can't do it perceptually. Or you get, you can't read, you can't see it. So you have to step back from it. There's something about that act that creates the subject-object split. And again, we don't fully understand it because, like I said, nobody's studying it because nobody cares. But they're going to be, because again, this transition is now the element that we understand is that, again, here's the history of, I'm kind of all over the place here because there's a lot of information I'm trying to speak to very quickly. And I'll sort of close with this. This is the history of Western consciousness in 60 seconds. Time me. Okay. So again, it starts 100,000 years ago with symbolic communication, which means language. Now they think language was actually around. Some people think for as much as 500,000 years, maybe 250,000 years before, but it was not the kind of language that humans use. It was a much more simple, it was more like giving commands to each other. And animals do this. You know, when birds, we walk, Dee and I live in a forest. When we walk through the forest, we hear the birds cry out and they're alerting everybody to that we're in the forest. And so the technology that spurred the first transformation was language. Then that, in 1600 BC, the alphabet gets invented. And so the alphabet is the technology that spurs the second great transformation of consciousness. That lasts 3,000 years because what we know now, science, philosophy and science, the prevailing view in philosophy and science is that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of neural activity, neurology. Neurology is primary, consciousness is secondary because it's a purely materialistic explanation. But the history of consciousness argues differently. It says, no, consciousness is primary, not neurology is primary. And so neurology does, if neurology determines consciousness totally, then the form of human consciousness, the way it's organized, the way it's structured, you have content of consciousness and you have form. Content is everything you think, feel, and perceive, everything that captures your attention. And the form of your consciousness is the way that's organized. That's what the subject-object split is. That's what the adwonement was. They were different forms of consciousness, different ways of organizing the same information. And so what we think now is that, yes, neurology plays a big role in consciousness, but it's the partnership of neurology with our communications technologies that determines the form of consciousness. Language was the first technology that partnered with consciousness, with neurology rather. The alphabet was the second technology that partnered with neurology, and now digital communications is partnering with neurology to create the third great transformation of human consciousness. So that's what's happening. And these transitions are not smooth, happy things. They are incredibly disruptive. They just completely blow the world, as humans have known it, apart. Again, the philosophers in Greece were loving what they were doing, but the rest of Greece was a little suspicious of what they were doing, because the adwonement had really petrified into a very rigid conformity. Tradition is the way we do things. We don't change things whatsoever, because each of these forms of consciousness has a shadow side, and eventually the shadow side takes over. When the subject-object split starts, here's this brilliant release of creativity, philosophy, science, etc. And now look what it's doing. It's separating us from nature. It's separating us from each other. I mean, this is ridiculous, the situation we are in. No species. Leonard Schlein, at the end of the interview that I'm going to, or the lecture that I'm going to put the link up to, is asked by somebody, they said, how, what do you think of what's happening in the world? And I think this was 2009, shortly before he died, when he gave this lecture. And he went through the whole history of not consciousness, but the whole history of human evolution, 300,000 years. It took him 5 minutes to do it, but he went through the whole thing. And then he said, when every species reaches the point where humanity is now, it either collapses from its own internal contradictions in a very violent way, or it transforms into something else. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to transform into something else. And the birth process is very, very difficult. When the dinosaur world was collapsing, the better adapted mammals were already running around under their feet. And that was very dangerous. You get stepped on by a dinosaur, you're a goner, okay? But the dinosaurs went and the mammals survived. So right now, by being interested in holistic healing, you are a mammal, all right? And allopathic medicine, which is a total creation of the subject-object split, all our societal, this is what is so difficult in these transitions, all of our societal institutions, our education system, our political system, our economic system, are all products of the subject-object split. I mean, it is so deeply ingrained, and here's the real problem that we're running into. These new technologies, which want to unite us, have been co-opted by the subject-object split in the name of Google and Facebook and all of these capitalist business, because capitalism is a creation of the subject-object split. All of these technologies have been co-opted and they're being weaponized against us. Whereas they want to be able to help us. So you have to get off all of these platforms to see where the real action is happening in terms of the new world. And I'm going to give two suggestions. I wish I had a woman to suggest, but I've just got two men. I suggest you look at what Charles Eisenstein is doing. If you don't know who he is, you can Google him. And he has a group where they're using the internet to connect people and to form community. And the same thing is being done by a doctor named Zachary Bush. And you can go to Zach Bush, MD. You can go to charleseisenstein.org, I think it is. Anyway, those are two examples of the new technology being used in the way it should be used, to bring us together, not to divide us. And if you're supporting Facebook, if you're supporting Google, you are again contributing to the demise of the world at this point in time. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't use those things. Go ahead and use them, but just understand what you're doing in the process, and look for ways to move into a way that you're not working against yourself in the whole process here. So that's. I didn't intend to go this long. I'm sorry, but that's in essence what I hope I've helped you understand here. This is a revolution. Are you a mammal or are you a dinosaur? That's your choice. And I'm going with the mammals. I hope you join me. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. We appreciate that.
I got to go rescue the dog. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay. So yeah, we're using Facebook right now, but we're using it in a way to bring together. So that's the point, is to be conscious of how these things can use us. That's really the point. I had no idea it was going to go into all that. So let's I still would like to keep comments low right now at this point, but thank you. Yeah, absolutely. He's got a perspective, a broad perspective that I think every one of us here feels deeply in our bones. Ellen, you have anything you'd like to comment on that, on his comments?
Well, he covered so much, and I've known Tom since I've known you for over 30 years. And the main things I would say is what he said fits in with what Isla talked about with the light language, and fits in with what I've talked about, what I've been sharing on the CALM, the Conscious Animal Lovers movement, that there's a whole new movement happening. And my clients for decades are kind of supporting this, and yours are, Dee. And so I think what Tom does, bring everything together. And the important thing with all of it is it goes beyond language. Language is a human construct, and every single word has a different meaning to different people through their own filters of that word. And what Isla's talking about with the light language, and what we're talking about with communication with all animals, that's way beyond words. You live in the country and everything. I live on a small island in British Columbia, Salt Spring Island. I look out on the whales, the seals, the otters, as well as the deer come right up to us and look at us every day. And the birds, and they all come here because we create a quiet, unified field. And to me, those are the real important things, and it goes beyond words. The deer, they all look at me and say, "Oh, you're a human that understands us." And in one of my last books, Kindred Spirits, I wrote about that. One of the biggest divides between us and all other animals is our own minds. And if we just let go of our minds and we come from our heart, which is what the Conscious Animal Lovers movement is all about, is really coming from our heart, and which is part of this revolution, or whatever, evolution or whatever. But we're in a world where we've been indoctrinated to come from the brain, and there's benefit to it. There's neither either or. But I think at this point, especially with what's happened over the last few years, it's absolutely critical that we focus on coming from the heart. And I've had my own experiences with that. Recently a near-death experience, and realizing, oh, I thought I was loving and caring, but I have so much more to learn about coming from the heart. And when I had this NDE and went to the other side and came back, I said, oh, I have so much more to both give and to receive. You know, the paradox is we either do one or another, but we live in a universe of paradoxes. And we have to accept that rather than taking a side. And so that's, you know, my take on Tom. And I'm grateful for the way Tom's explained it. And me with the Conscious Animal Lovers movement, and with Isla with light language, and Dee with what you're teaching about the revolution and how important the 20 people who are going to be part of your special course are very blessed, because they'll really be able to hear you and be with you in a small group. But this is the key now, is like, that's why I don't teach that much on, even though I do, I'm still a professor, or will be a professor at another university. But we need to go beyond all this and beyond language, because language constricts, you know, and it isn't that it's bad, it's a way to communicate, but it's very constrictive. And we're at a point now of being very expansive. And that's what the Conscious Animal Lovers movement is. That's what Isla's light language is. It's going beyond labels, beyond words, beyond all of that, and come from feelings. Right. And you and I know that, you know, being friends for decades, is all of this, and the holistic movement, it's about coming from feelings. And anyway, that's what.
But you took a long time to learn that. I mean,
that's part of my journey.
Yep, that was one of your journey, because you were Mr. Integrative Veterinarian. Your left brain was firing on all engines, the neurology, the, you know, understanding all of that. And the beauty in your journey is you did that, you understand that. And Isla, I'm going to pinpoint this on you next too. And then to come to this other side, and I think of really more heart-centered understandings, more heart-centered treatments, more heart-centered philosophy, blah, 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 you know, all of that, which was really, I think, a more feminine model and more useful now. We need that now.
And, you know, what you're saying is 100% correct. You know, that was one of the things that got me to be a professor at different vet schools, was my left brain. I was able to explain it all based on Western medicine, so they didn't think I was an outsider. And I thought I had been in touch with my feelings and my heart as well. And at some degree, like my clients were saying, Alan, you're one of the most compassionate, heart-feeling vets I know. But with my near-death experience, I realized how much more I needed to learn. You know, oh, I thought I knew that. And not learn, but feel. Mm-hmm. I realized how much more I need to feel. And that's the beauty that women like Dr. Fishburne and you bring, is, and what Tom was saying, is bringing the feminine back in. Mm-hmm. And that's what holistic medicine is, bringing the feminine back into healing with the animals. And it's with all of us. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. Isla, you have any comments to make on?
Thank you, Dee, and thanks, Tom and Alan. What beautiful shares already. And where to start? Yeah. You know, from my perspective, it is where did this fragmentation start? When did we get so disconnected with ourselves, right? I think for me, that's my area of passion, of desire, of we got so lost in ourselves, we've got so disconnected in ourselves that, of course, we are so disconnected with everything through this concept of separation. And therefore, I am not connected to anything because I'm not connected to myself. And absolutely, like Alan shares, it is so much of dropping out of our head into our heart. And that's why I will always share that beautiful Einstein quote, which is, the rational mind is a faithful servant, but the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. But we've chosen to live in a society that favors, that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the gift is that wholeness, that oneness. Everything is connected. Like, I am a sophisticated vibration in a human body, but I'm just a vibration. That's all I am. I exist as a current, electric spark, an impulse, a reflex. I'm just having, it's almost like going from nothingness into knowingness, going from nothingness into knowingness, as when you can't break anything else down into their fundamental parts, components, we are all just a vibration. And that's why we get to exist in this beautiful soup cocktail of vibration from a higher consciousness and intelligence. And that's what I want people to understand, how, yeah, we are an intellect, and animals of varying levels have intellect from their brain, but way, way beyond that is a vibration. We're in this soup of one consciousness, of one intelligence, and all these beautiful ways of connecting to that by starting remembering, what does it mean to connect to me? Like, what does it mean for me to be sacred? Because from my perspective, we are all unique, but we're unique fragmentations of source. We are a soul in a physical body, regardless of whether we're a human, dog, horse, tree, water source, plant. Everything that exists that we are connected to as a vibration has a soul that we can connect to on this higher level of consciousness, this wider level of consciousness and intelligence that we can receive, we can heal, we can connect, which then, yes, moves us away from the ego-led, rational mind, brain-led of I know, therefore, like, I don't need to know anything else. Like, one of the things that I always tell myself is, wow, today's a new day and I know nothing. And so when I share that, I mean, today's a new day and I know nothing, in terms of, I don't allow my ego to get in the way of, like, oh, well, I already know that, so I don't need to know anything else. But also from that place of disconnect, right? So many of us as Western humans are really, we're walking from pains, like Tom shared. Like, how many ancestral wounds, how many belief systems are we carrying from our relatives, from our ancestors, that aren't even ours, but because we've heard it from lineages after lineage after lineages, of, like, we carry that to go, oh yes, people that wear red coats I don't like because that's what's being passed down to me, which it just doesn't make sense. It's irrational. But we adopt these belief systems that then comes through the language. And I'm just like, wow, why don't we get back into the connection to self, connection to, therefore, all of life, which is why our animals as souls so beautifully coexist with us, to remind us how to be happy and how to heal and how to have that connection, because they do not exist from the rational mind. The only place they exist from is from the heart, and from that intuitive mind. And that's where the sacredness is. So how do we tap into the heart, which is absolutely a felt sense? Like I say to my clients, like, I'll ask them a question and they'll be like, oh, and I'm like, guys, I asked you to feel it, not think it. Feel it, not think it. And when we drop into that place of feeling, the things that we can access, the way that we receive, goes way, way beyond the limitation of dialect, the limitation of language, which, again, as we share with our animals, when we speak to our animals, like Alan said so beautifully, is it comes with an expectation, it comes with a limitation, it comes with a preconceived idea of, even when I'm saying something, we've got to be careful of the power of vibration. Like, thoughts become things. What we speak, I was like, we should be conscious of the words that we speak, because they can be medicine or they can be poison. So even when we're sharing, we're speaking to our animals or to ourselves or to another loved one, we could be saying one thing, but we might be thinking something different. And that is also felt, because it's a vibration. So that is also felt. Poof, it's an impact to our companion animals, to another human, to a water source, to plants, to whatever. So being conscious of the words that we speak, and any expectation or limitation or even control, really sharing here from a place of non-judgment, right? And stepping back into that oneness. And what does that oneness look like? Well, that oneness actually means we put our hand up and just go, wow, I'm in pain right now. I am hurting. This is a journey. This is a lifelong journey. But it gets to be fun, and it's from a place of non-judgment. Like, wow, I didn't recognize that I was living from a trigger there. I didn't recognize I was actually living from a wound, a pain, a trauma, a belief system, whatever we want to call it. And that's what our companion animals, again, so beautifully, like, they're always considering us. And so one of the things that they so beautifully show up for is to go, hey, I'll be your reflection. I'm not the one with the problem here. I'm reflecting it back at you. If we kind of go into that state. So, you know, for me, when people are like, oh, my animal has this problem, or how do I change this, or how do I change that? I'm like, let's not even start there. Because again, that's a separation. Let's go back and look at the blending, the dance that we're together, because again, we are living in the core, right? It's like we're in the core of that volcano between us and our companion animals in the homes that we coexist in. So what is it that our dog is, or dog, companion animal is sharing with us, is reflecting, and how we can be open and honest, authentic. So for me, it is about being transparent yet vulnerable. But when we're existing from a pain, from a wound that we are carrying, really it's hard to be vulnerable and transparent, because we are told that's a dangerous thing. We are told that we can't trust, and starting with trusting ourselves, we are told that we can't love, starting with loving ourselves. And so for me, that's where the oneness, that's where the intelligence and consciousness comes from. Like, I speak with love for myself, from unconditional love for myself and others. And as I do so, I break down those barriers, I break down those walls, I break down those wounds. And even in cycle situation settings where maybe someone is going to like a peaceful protest, a peaceful ceremony, if they're going there with anger, then that's the vibration that you're putting into the consciousness. And we've already got enough of that. That's why we're in the problem that we're in, because so many of us are walking around from these pains, like we've mentioned before, that are in the shadow. We're unconscious to them until they come into the consciousness, And for me, that's really when we are coming back into that wholeness of that beautiful saying of, you know, one heart, one mind, as above, so below, as within, so without. Our connection to self is starting with connection to self, and that's spreading out to connecting to the lands, connecting to animals, connecting to plants, connecting to waters, connecting to wind, connecting to stars, and which goes way, way, way beyond the dialect, the language of the human that we're limited to, but then also comes to these preconceived attachments with the words that we agree to, that we carry, that we don't know we agree to, but then we can kind of place on our dogs. Like, how many of us, well, companion animals, I say, how many of us speak to our cats, our horses, gerbils, guinea pigs, dogs, whatever animal we coexist with, and actually, if we take a step back, we're like, oh my goodness, I'm speaking to my animal the way that I was spoken to as a child. And I actually remembered how unlimited, like how limiting that is, how degrading that is, how suffocating that is. Like, as a child, I wanted to be asked, does this feel right for you? How do you feel? How do you feel about getting in the car and going to the beach? Is that right? That's what I want to do with you, but is that right for you? Wear this green harness. I bought it for you. It's like, wear this green jumper. I don't care. I'm like, wow, like, I know how suffocating that was for me when an adult was like, well, I'm the adult, you're the child, so I don't care about what you feel. And in fact, I don't have time. And we kind of do the same thing with our companion animals, which again is this separation, right? But we're like, let's bring it back into this consciousness, into this oneness, into this intelligence to go, yeah, do you know what? You're a living being as well. I want to know what it feels like for you. I want to consider what it feels like for you, and whatever eclectic, beautiful ways that our animals share, that we can all do. This is not, I mean, it's magical. It is magic, but we are sacred beings. We are divine, sacred beings. We are souls. So therefore we are magic and mystery. Let's tap into that from my perspective. Let's tap back into that sacredness, which allows us then to tap into that oneness of spirit, of soul, of source, of connection.
So really that's great. So what you're talking about really is the difference between an I-thou relationship and an I-it relationship. And when you are really in a sacred relationship with an animal or a person or trees or whatever, there is that holiness that everyone is a thou. Everyone is on equal footing. And then there is no separation. There is no subject-object split. But once we become, once we keep separating ourselves and all the different ways, I think what Tom is trying to say is we swim in this unconsciousness of the subject-object split, where human beings are here, animals are there, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then we create the world around that, not realizing that that is everything that we're seeing, right? And then it becomes just a common way to relate, a common way to engage, a common way to speak. It's just part of who we are. It's the difference of, I think we were talking yesterday in the Q&A, many countries don't neuter and spay their animals like we do. They would never think of that, even in the UK, right? Even it's much different in the UK versus the United States. Everybody gets neutered immediately. But different consciousness or different cultural agreements really can allow for different mindset, and we're talking here about how do we, again, this is a holistic summit. So I'm sorry, I need to bring that back in here. I should have done that sooner, but this is a summit about how holism, it's not just holism medicine, but it's about holism in general. How can we become more whole, more healed, and more a part of the whole, our whole, the bigger generic whole, I guess I could say. And how we do that in our homes, we do that through, like Alan, your work with understanding that the animals are fantastic for helping us become better healers for them and the world. Isla, you do it through the shamanic experience, where the left brain is put on the shelf for a little while, and the engagement into the world of that the animals love in your little 5-minute. I mean, they told us right there, right? They said, yes, you're talking our language, girlfriend. So what I'd like to see is, I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to see if you all have any other comments. What I'd like to see this movement for animal health and whole health for the whole planet is that we find those ways to recognize when we are separate, that we look at them and we find ways to get back together. If COVID didn't show us that, I'm not quite sure whatever will, So any comments you all have? Anything else? Yeah, Alan, please.
Well, just one quick thing. If that ties it all together, what Tom's saying, what Isla's saying, what you're saying, is if each person that's watching this just feels that and realizes they're one pixel of consciousness, just like our computer screens are all these pixels. If each person is one pixel of consciousness, if each animal, our animal friends, our animal family, each one is a pixel of consciousness and feeling, oh, what is that pixel of consciousness portraying, mirroring outside to us, and experiencing that, and feeling that, and from that, responding to the mirror of what's in front of us, because it's all consciousness. It's all, the trees, the, plants, all the animals, the space between all of us in the unified field theory is documenting that. It's all consciousness. And if you really feel what that consciousness is, we can come back to that interconnectivity that Tom was talking about.
Yeah, right. We have a choice here.
Yeah.
And, we have big choices to make here. And I think that that's one of my motivations for doing this summit, is because we're on a slippery slope here. And it's not just that I get very disturbed watching your animals. We'll take, in fact, let's open the chat, but please, no questions about personal veterinary care. That's not what we're doing here today. I'm not going to answer any, so don't even waste your time. What I'd love to know, if you have comments or if you have questions with what we're discussing right here, okay? Please, then, if you have a question specifically for one person, that would be super awesome. But it's, I'm very worried watching the track of the way that our companion animals have gone, their health, of course. And they're a reflection of us, right? The canaries in the coal mine. So, but it's everywhere, right? We see this direction, I guess, going off the deep end. But, and I think that what I was hoping here is not that the speakers would have solutions for your kidney disease or solutions for the bad teeth or anything like that, because they all do. But there's lots of solutions for those out there. Really, to help you understand a place to come from, the fundamentals of how we can help heal our animals and the planet. And that's my basic goal. That's all of it right there. So anyway, so should we look at a few questions here, ladies and gents? Any other comments first from you guys while we're picking up some questions?
Can I add one final thing?
Yeah, please.
I think what I've seen in the three of you is a perfect example of where we need to be. The at-one-ment didn't work very well by itself. The mistake the Greeks made was they threw the at-one-ment, they threw the baby out with the bath and took in the subject-object split. Whereas if they had realized what was happening, which they didn't, they couldn't see what was happening. They should have integrated the two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the solution. Otherwise, we just keep going from the matriarchy to the patriarchy to the matriarchy to the patriarchy. It ain't going to work. It's got to be a collaboration. You know, we're all put on this planet in two sexes, animals, humans, and whatever, to figure this out, that it's got to be a collaboration, you know? Mm-hmm. And because we bring different things to the table here. So I think both Alan and Dr. Fishburne are incredible examples of people that use the subject-object split in its highest manifestation, because it's an incredible gift. The problem is when you just live there, when you don't know how to get out of it. And that's what's happened to our culture. So these two guys and D2, all three of you step in and out of the subject-object split back into the at-one-ment, back into the split, and that's exactly what we all need to learn to do and get comfortable with that. And that's what will be the new world. And the people who can't do that, I'm sorry, they'll just, Max Planck said one time, nobody convinces anyone of a new paradigm. The old generation dies and the new generation takes over. That's the essence of it,
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
There we go. Okay.
And just following on from what Tom's again so beautifully said is, the blending of the two energies, right? The sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, and really understanding what they are. The decolonizing the colonized patriarchal system, which has been around for a while now and evidently isn't working because it's a distortion, right? But honoring the two energies, and so bringing the two together, the way that I see it is the sacred feminine is matter and feelings, which we all have regardless of gender, and then the sacred masculine is the vessel, the container of that love. And bringing the two together, and then love for me is also oneness, is wholeness, coming to that place of love.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That's all we can, that's it. The rest of it is irrelevant. And that's why I'm a broken record about opting out of all these things that somehow or another we've been conditioned because we're on that fear track, and we'll keep being told one fear thing after another. They'll just keep coming. And if you don't believe that fear, then we'll throw another one at you. If you don't believe that fear, we'll throw another at you, to the point where you're then so afraid of your world. And what is that? That is the separation. You will create more space, more distance. It's the subject-object split. It's over them that are going to hurt me, and I'm over here, so I have to guard. And you can't guard enough. You just can't, You have to just be one with it. Let it flow through you, around you, with you, breathe it in, whatever. It is what it is. But we have to honor that this is our world too. And what you're saying about consciousness, Alan, is this is we have to take this responsibility right now for what we've created. And Thomas said this too. We're right there. Okay. Are there any, this was kind of, hang on a second, Brenda. This was kind of a bold effort here, I know, to talk about consciousness. It's not exactly what you were probably came for, but I felt it was really important because we could only do so much of this in the, excuse me, in the interviews. And I know that many people come looking for those kind of quicker solutions for their animals' ear problems or whatever. But really, again, fundamentally, we're trying to get at some of the root causes of this so that we're all of those other things. Yeah, ear problems come and go, but they're not the center of your life or your dog's life, because ways of dealing energetically with these things just become part of your magical healing process, which the body is capable of doing. So not that I have it, obviously, I've got a cold still going on, but I hope this has stimulated you to that next level. I didn't want to leave this summit with you just, having some really good people like Dr. Schoen and Dr. Isla, do their magic work and let me interview them. But I wanted you to be thinking a little deeper about where you take it now when you leave. And that was my intention, especially those of you that are in the profession and are going to be changing how you're engaging in the profession, Dr. Turner, and also Royal. I think you're really going to enjoy your new veterinary profession, right, Alan? Didn't you really enjoy it?
Definitely. It's part of the journey. It's one of the main things. The key thing I feel with all of this is to have everyone who's watching and all the people who are going to be taking your smaller course, and for all the speakers, is to realize we are all healers of the world heart, because our animals, when they're being with us, they are our mirror, our outer manifestation of our own heart space, showing up as a dog or a cat and this and that, or whatever. And what the world needs right now, especially after these last few years, is we all need to be healers of the heart, of the world heart. That's what I'm doing with Calm. I'm saying I'm done with all the other stuff. Really, what we're looking at is each and every person on this summit is a healer of the world heart. And what we need to do is heal the world heart, letting go of all other labels of what that is.
Yeah. Talk some more about that. Talk some more about your Calm.
Okay. So this all came to me in dreams. And one morning I woke up and I heard create calm. And I said, well, the world can use a lot of calm in the midst of all of what's going on. And I go, but what is that? And I heard what I call the cosmic chuckle. And it just laughed and said, you'll see. And I woke up the next day and I heard calm is the acronym for the Conscious Animal Lovers Movement. And that's where you need to put your energy right now. And I go, what is that? And when am I? And I heard the cosmic chuckle again and heard, oh, it'll show up. It'll show up. And it showed up in every dream, not every dream, but many dreams in that's what my next step on my journey is, bringing calm, the Conscious Animal Lovers Movement, everyone together who feels from their heart with their animals, and like Isla's, like talking language, conversing beyond any language, going with the light language and seeing what feels right to your animals and to you, and connecting from the heart, because that's a profound communication that's beyond words.
Yep, absolutely. And you're looking for ambassadors?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I could go on in this. I'm looking, it's been put out to me. I said, I can't deal with this calm at this point in life. It's so big. And I heard the cosmic chuckle again. And I said, every time I go out there and talk about calm, people will come to me and say, oh, this is my next step. oh, I want to be supportive of this calm movement. I want to be an ambassador of it in my group, to my friends, to all my animal friends, to all the groups that I connect with. So I'm putting it out to everyone here that if you are, you can see it on my website, drschoen.com, because we're so busy, but that's what I've gotten from all that is the beyond, whatever label we put on it, is there are people out here who are watching this who are saying, oh, I've been guided to be an ambassador of calm, of the conscious animal lovers movement. And this is one way to create a different society than the one that is being told to us by mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one based on love and love of all beings, and letting go of the labels of, well, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is this. Let go of all of that and just say we're all pixels of consciousness, and the consciousness really is about love.
Yeah.
And all the stuff in the mainstream, all the stuff that's being shown to us is about fear. And it's a choice. Are we going to come from love, or are we going to come from fear? Mm-hmm. And, what calm, which has come through me, I won't say, it isn't me, it's come through me, is right now, every single being out there who's watching this, you can be a vehicle for the world heart and healing it, mm-hmm. by coming from love and doing that with your animal friends and human friends, everyone. So thank you for bringing that up, Dee, and for letting me, I kind of forget and go off on other tangents.
That's beautiful. I love it. What I really love about it is that these animals, every animal I've ever had, and I know this is true for everybody else. Maybe it's not, but I could speak for most of us, is that there are teachers, and if they help us come to a better life somehow or another, then that's fantastic. Our little 17-year-old dog that Tom's watching over now with all of her issues, she's still a teacher and will be to the minute she leaves here. And so, okay, was there another question, Isaac? And then I know we're running over here. We'll wind it up here. You all have been so patient. I'm deeply touched. It seems like it's helped you. I hope it has, because, and maybe not even so much helped you, but just reconfirm what you already know in your soul. And so, blessed be. Dr. Isla, to your point of enforcing our desires on our dog, i.e. put on this green harness, how can we be aware of what they want if they turn away? Do they not want it? And how to determine why? Mm-hmm. You might not know why, right?
That's have we got time for this question? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a beautiful question. So the first thing I'm going to share is, as humans, we are the only animal that has self-limiting beliefs and self-limiting doubts. So first thing I always share is our animals are always so forgiving, because they do not have self-limiting beliefs or self-limiting doubts. They do not exist from ego, judgment, blame, criticism. They don't even know what that is. And actually, our soul, when we drop into our soul's just like, what is this ego thing? So that's the first thing that I'll share, because a lot of people, when we go into this place of freedom, access, choice, consciousness, they can I've done all these things wrong with my animal. That's not true, because like we've been talking about, we are all on this journey together. So our animals show up so beautifully for us to also learn about this wider consciousness, this wider way of connecting, this vibration. So they're like, yeah, hey, I'll do that. I'll come here and do that for you and show you the way. So let's kind of put the judgment of self, if there is any, to one side, because our animals, or non-human animals, do not exist from that place. And this is why, like, one of the reasons why then your animal is with you, to allow you to open up this gateway, this portal of the intuitive mind, of being able to communicate and connect beyond verbal communication, or even when we are professionals that I am in, like animal behavior, dog communication, dog behavior, I'm still making I'm kind of guessing still. I'm making a very good guess based on my knowledge, but it could still be like, why don't I just ask the animal? Because the animal will tell me exactly what feels right for for them from that vibrational perspective, which I appreciate. Like right now, it's going to be like, well, I can't do that. And also what I will share is, again, from my perspective, when I'm connecting with animals, the way that I connect, the way that I work, it's almost like why I'm here is to go beyond the why. So one of the things that I share with my clients is, okay, let's not ask why questions, because it's still a why. It's from the mind, right? I expect to hear something that's going to be logical, that I can analyze, that, oh, right, that makes sense. A lot of my work is like, we're exploring, we're on this soul journey, this soul experience. So let's step beyond the why, because the why, again, can come with a condition or a punishment, or I'm a bad person, or I did this wrong, or I need my brain to understand. And this, when we are tapping into the consciousness, the brain cannot comprehend it. It goes beyond what the mind can comprehend. That's the magic of it. That's the beauty of it, the excitement. And so, there are ways that, for example, I've got the green harness. It might be the harness itself, not the color.
Right.
But there can be some very simple ways that we can start to tap into the intelligence of, like, energy testing, using the pendulum, trusting our intuition, being led by how our animals responding, just a feeling, right? That good feeling of like, I just feel like I don't have an answer, but I just feel this isn't right for my animal. As we do this, we're tapping more into intuition, which is the place from heart, which is the place from expansion, unlimitedness, rather than, again, this preconceived, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. So firstly and foremost, stepping away from as a soul in the physical body that we are right now, like, our soul is never going to be destroyed. So we're having, like, this is a chapter of our soul journey, and then at one point we'll come out of physical body, and then we may go back to spirit, or we may become something else. But this is why I want people to understand we are having, even when challenges arise and frustrations come, it's still to help us learn and expand and evolve back into this oneness. So that's why, for me, I'm like, let's be really playful of stepping out of the why, of stepping out of any judgment we carry, and that's still being information for itself and something to explore. But to begin with, we can do really simple stuff of energy testing, using a pendulum, feeling into it. What's my animal physically showing of, am I chasing around the house trying to put this harness on? And I'm telling them that they just kind of know, almost to not quite learned helplessness. That's probably too strong a word for this, but just like, oh, I know that I have to sit here and have this harness put on. And again, it's a dance, right? It's a partnership. It's a flow. If any of those suggestions answer your question at all.
Yeah, I think that was fantastic. I love it. I love it. I think of the only why is, why does it matter? Okay. Well, if you guys have any other comments here real quick, we need to wrap up. And Tom, Alan, you have any other quick comments? Or do you feel complete?
I just think you guys are doing great work. I think this kind of summit is of really good use of electronic technologies. And I think, you should trust that you're on the right path. And I think you should try to help other vets who begin to sense that there's something different out there. Just help them come on board when they're ready. And if they don't, love them for who they are and let them go.
Great. Love it. Thank you. Tom, don't forget to put your links in the comments.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Okay. And then, okay, Alan, because what I'd like to do...
Just say, recently, I had this near-death experience, and I went to the other side and came back. It's messages beyond words, but the bottom line is, it's really about love, which I thought I connected to, and I loved, and I was loving with my clients, with all their animals, with everyone. But I came back with another realization, a much deeper realization of what love is. We have labels on it, but really it's coming from the heart. And, I was like, in touch with, I need to be feeling more in my heart. I think about it. I use the brain to feel it, but I need to feel it inside my heart more.
Yeah.
So my blessing to all of you. And I see in the comments, if some of you are interested in getting involved in Calm, email me. My email contacts, everything is on there somewhere.
Good. And
Dr.
Fishburne, I want to close with you actually, but you can also be reached through Kachina K9, KACHINE K9 and K9 CINE.com, right? KachinaK9.com. So would you do a closing light language for us, or if drumming, whatever, would you do a closing? Let me just say one last thing again, and we'll just end with her and my deep gratitude for you all for being here and for touching me so much that your comments and just your love of your animals and for really deeper all of the animals and all of the planet. So thank you for allowing me to do this. It was really an honor and a privilege. So take it away, Isla.
Can I ask, how long do we have? Are we set for time?
People, why don't we, Isaac's probably going to have to wind it up. If you have, no more than probably 10 minutes, he probably would say,
okay,
but
okay. Let me,
whatever you think you can do.
Okay, sorry.
If people need to drop off, they need to drop off. That's okay. I understand. Okay. And so there we are. So Tom, you have to put those comments into the, not the private chat, but the other one. So while she's doing her drumming, you can transfer them over there, okay?
Okay, so what feels right, I'm gonna do some drumming, and then from drumming I'm gonna go into light language. But with the drumming, right, this is there's a particular way I'd set it up, which I appreciate just with time constraints we don't have. So I just want you to be guided by the drum. This is one way that we can connect, right? We are connecting from the heart. So just allowing yourself, even if this feels really new to you, just allow yourself to just stop, drop down into your body, drop down into your heart. And so as I drum, just as quick as a flash, don't analyze it, don't think it, just the first thing that comes to you, like, if I could ask a question to my animal, what would it be? And hold on to that question as I drum and just see what comes through. It could be a knowing, it could be words, it could be taste, smell, symbol, plant, metaphor, image, this eclectic, beautiful soup of consciousness that we get to sit in and be in as we access in these ways. So I'm going to do the drum first, and then from that, go into the light language. Are induk oshe ewe ik no tuk osha. Hime isik ina aruk ume eche isi no ore iume ik. Nauru ume ik eshe we inak hore ibchik. Hono ochik na suno ora tak emeshe. Imeshi inusuk ore itk hawa onuk oshe ewe ituk o. Hara ak eshe. Hara ak we eshe imi ise unutuk ore e. Hama ashe hese. Hama ewa ausuno o tak ashe ewa ak. Hanu usu ume isu na lapas. Ima atu oshe ewa anak ashe e. Ana ak awa ashe esa anok oche. Ana ok oche ewa usu no ok eshe me itak. Hawa osu oshana. Ina ok are echa ak ome su utku. Osu utku oshe e. Homa asna sunu une te pas. Ono ete e pas awe e shehino tuk. Ono oshe ese itka. Hano o e karia ama e awa eche. Awana eche ese no tu. Awana eche owa asehina. Awana ese hina ashe hina oso pas. Ono o ture Ona rutune isa atakashe sotopas. Horete inak ashe. Horete ik isha awa asena tuk ore itik ishe mitaka. Hare ete imishe ik ame echo. Horesene suno otapas. Hiwa atik ishe. Hiwa anaso. Hiwa nasuno oche. Hiwa no oso eche ima suno tu. Hiwa achine ise hino suno tu e igrak. Howache. Ho susunote. Ho susunanemete. Horete. Uno sena chuno sa. Are sena kariat ama ok oshe. Hime sene ozo mapas. Hiwe ese uso mapas. Natore. Okay, there's something coming through, so let me just see what comes through. We want you to know, to feel, to deeply your being, in your vessel, in what you are, in this space, in this place, that you are never alone. This is not possible. This is not known of the way that existence is, the way that we exist. We have listened. We have been here listening, watching, being, feeling, holding. We want you to know that we hear. We want you to know that we listen, that there is all the ways that we can understand, all the ways for us to receive, and for you to receive fully, for you to be, for you to feel, for you to explore, for you to exist in this space, in this moment, in this moment. This is a powerful time. This is a share for us to send to you, to understand the magnitude, to understand the power, the holding, the ability that you have here now, in this moment, in this space. You have all that you need. You are all that you need, and we are here. There is no separation. There is no separation. There is no identity, no individual where there is existence. You are existing. You are existing, and you are love. You are existing, and you are loved. We love you. We love you. You are loved. This is a powerful time. This is what we want you to hear, to know, to explore, to feel in this time, in this sitting, in this space where you have all come to be, to hear, to share, to grow, to grow, to grow in love, to be that love, to feel that love, to know that love, to grow in that love. You are loved. You are loved. You are loved. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Anaturi. Wow. I want to hear all the animals that came to the computers or whatever. That was very powerful, Isla. Thank you so much for doing it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, what an incredible message too. That we are not alone and we are loved. And what a beautiful way to end our Sunday gathering. Go into the world, make peace and love, and have fun with your animals. And we'll see you tomorrow. I need to get off because I need to go cry for a while. Thank you guys for being here. I love you.
Many blessings.
Bye. Thank you, Anna.